we start to look at the ancient world, even in prehistoric times, the heaviest stones that were moved, as I briefly touched on before, were the first to move. Then they became lesser. So let's think of it as ancient civilizations didn't actually progress like we think it should progress. Oh, it's all going to go forward. It's all going to go forward, and we're going to get more intelligent because we think we've done that in our short space of time. I think there was particular crises in the prehistoric period where certain information got blocked. So I think they were highly intelligent, highly intelligent. And they knew stones. So at Stonehenge, they imported from Wales the blue stones, which are 3 times more magnetic than any other stone in the British Isles. That's not saying, oh, I want a colour contrast, like some of the archaeologists are saying. That's saying we want magnetism. And when we plug that into earth energies, it kind of comes up the stone. And I've described that over many years and have proved that comes up the stone. We measured it many years ago. So the stones are emitting Hertzian sound frequency.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Mystic Gateway Podcast. Thank you very much for the subscribes and for the likes. I'm having a ball doing this and all the guests I'm having and all the new people I'm meeting. Today I'm really excited because I've got a very special guest on, someone who I consider an expert in some very out there topics, particularly in relation to things that are going on here in the UK and in England. Maria Wheatley, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on the Mystic Gateway podcast.
You are very welcome. We were just talking. The first time I came across you is you were actually up in 2022 doing an event up in Blackpool, which is where I am, and all these kind of like, I don't know what you call them, and I don't like the word celebrity, but these very well-known researchers like Billy Carson and John Enoch and Eric Van Daniken, the late Eric Van Daniken was here, and obviously you were here, and I absolutely loved your talk, and I remember you gave it on Stonehenge, and it was really fascinating.
That's right. I know Billy. I've met Eric Von Daniken. I've had several conversations with him, and Johnny Enoch gave a good review of my book, The Secret History of Stonehenge. I know all these guys quite well.
Fantastic. No, that's great. And it was just amazing that I could literally walk to the venue from where I am. So it was a really good time. But yeah, you really stood out to me, and I followed you on Facebook, and I keep a keen interest on what you're up to because you do a lot of events and things like that. But I really wanted to get into these kind of a lot of the mysterious things of England, of stone circles, and just generally the things that are going on in this country that I consider very well or very knowledgeable about. So where would you want to start this? I mean, you live near Avebury. I have been to the stones there, and I always try and tap in and try and feel out like what's going on here. But I'd love to get your perspective. I mean, what is it about stone, and what can we find out through the stone?
Well, I'll come to the stone, but what a lot of people don't realize about Avebury and many other stone circles is that's not their genesis. Their genesis was timber circles
Ah,
and timber posts. So the very first stages of Avebury, Stanton Drew, Stonehenge, and many others were timber circles and marker posts. They were then dismantled, and then came the stone circle building phase. But then again, it wasn't the circles. So if we see Avebury, for example, as being timber, that then was removed, and then stone settings were put up. So those stone settings were the gigantic cove stones, which contains that stone setting, which is three stones in the northern part of Avebury, and it contains the heaviest megalith in the British Isles.
mm,
At least 100 tons, if not 120 tons.
mm,
So it started off with that setting and another setting, the gigantic obelisk stone, which was 21 feet tall by 9 feet broad, and a few other stones. That was Avebury in the Neolithic. No other standing stones at all. It's just the fact that when tourists come to these sites, they look at it all and think it's all the same timeline
right.
when it really isn't.
Mm,
So that's the first phase, stone phase of Avebury. And then about 500 years later, well, between 400 and 500 years later, the stone circles were erected.
mm,
So that's a really big gap between those huge stone settings and then smaller stones erected around them, albeit they are big. Some of
mm,
them are big stones. And that was Avebury. Another couple of hundred years later, the outer stone circle was built, and even later, the avenues. So when we look at Avebury, we're looking at what archaeologists call a composite monument. It's built in different phases by different cultures and different peoples. But when we look at the whole, when we look at Avebury for what the ancestors left us today,
mm,
despite that time span, then there is something so incredible and powerful about these sites. It still draws people today
mm,
by their hundreds, by their thousands at the solstices. And I believe that's because underneath the stones are powerful earth energies that decreed and set the architecture of stone circles and even the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. So, underpinning all of what you see above ground, what you don't see above ground, is really the core and the harmonics and the energetics of a place like Avebury
mm.
Henge.
That's really fascinating, and I love because it's all about frequency ultimately, isn't it? Like we're dealing with things like frequency. Now, I am no expert at this, but I do love the topic as to the why because there's many other sites, but we'll stick with Avebury for the time being. But what is it energetically about the stone? Why the stones and why they're so significant?
The stones are called sarsen stone. It's a very hard form of sandstone,
Hmm.
and it contains a lot of quartz. So you're going to get a lot of piezoelectrical activity at these sites. And we'll come on to frequencies in the moment because I'm a forerunner at Avebury and Stonehenge that have measured them categorically.
Mm,
So the stone itself is very powerful, but even more powerful than the stones, let's say, for example, are their placement. All stone circles in the British Isles, all stone circles, are never more than 1 to 2 miles away from a fault line. Now, these fault lines influence the megaliths in many different ways, one of which, for example, is what's called a shear force, which I've documented for many, many, many years now. And that's when the sun or the moon pass the horizon line in sunrise or sunset,
mhm,
and the energetics in the earth, the geological energetics, mean there's a pull of that gravitational pull, a bit like the sea going out and coming in and its
mm,
tidal waves. Think of it like that. And then at those times, it allows the megaliths to be bathed in piezoelectrical material. So when you touch it, it will tingle.
Mm.
That's a natural geological phenomena. Put on top of that the earth energies that underpin it, then you've got a double whammy in place, because it even boosts it more. But I always say to people that go to Avebury, it is a really reconstructed site.
Right.
So, for example, in the southern circle alone, that is the most glamorous, it's got the most stones, it's
Mm.
very fantastic. Was mostly reconstructed by Alexander Keeler in the 1930s, but the few stones that are in situ there are really powerful. The others were set in concrete. They're still powerful, but not as powerful as the ones that have been left alone for nearly 4,500 years, for example.
Mm.
So we need to see these monuments quite clearly, because when we go there, we just think, oh, everything is quite natural there, but when it's far from that. But what I've noticed about the megaliths over the years, and have proved the frequencies coming out of them, is that particular points on the stone have power, and the megaliths themselves release energy in the ground. So if you imagine that megaliths can push out concentric stones, concentric circles around them. They can push out linear lines, and they can also have power points going up the stone. That's just a megalith.
Mm.
Now, in its pristine condition, when everything was in situ, when it wasn't obviously reconstructed back in the day, that's an immense amount of megalithic energy.
Mm.
William Stukeley drew Avebury as the Serpent Temple. It's one of the most famous drawings of Avebury, but it is so, so wrong. He wanted everything to fit his idea of it being a serpent temple. So he has two avenues on there, the Beckhampton Avenue and the West Kennet Stone Avenue, but originally there would have been four avenues. He omitted two, for example. We know that because the earlier antiquarian showed you the recumbent stones going down one particular avenue, and then Keeler found stone sockets in the other part. So we do know that there was four. Again, Avebury has many different angles, and many people have projected their theories and ideas onto these sites that may or may not have any true relevance.
Mm. Right. Right. So when people, I mean, I know a lot of people are drawn to these sites, and I don't know if you know off the top of your head how many kind of sacred sites with these stones there are across the United Kingdom. Do you have any idea at all?
Yeah, of course, I'm a,
Of course
I'm
you
a
do.
I'm a megalithic queen. Yes, there's about 1,000 surviving stone circles in the British
Wow.
Isles alone. So now, when we think about how many have been dismantled, just 7 miles north of Avebury was a fantastic stone circle.
Mm.
Probably would have outshone Avebury to some regard had it survived. It was drawn by antiquarians, but unfortunately demolished in 1725.
Mm.
Okay, so if you add on, okay, where we've got 1,000 surviving, perhaps 1,000 have been taken down. There could have been 2,000, 3,000. Nobody really truly knows the figure of
Mm.
the amount of stone circles in the Bronze Age.
Mm. Right, right. That's fascinating because, like I say, there seems to be a rising curiosity about them. I think as people are becoming kind of a bit more spiritually in tune with things, like there's a pull. I can, I've felt it. I love going to these sites, and I don't know why I enjoy it. I just love being there. One that's close to where I am is Castlerig in
Oh, I love
Keswick.
Castlereagh. I'll be going there in September the 27th and the 28th with Mysterious
Fantastic.
North Conference.
Oh, fantastic! Any chance I get to go there near Keswick in Cumbria.
Yeah, I know
Um,
it well.
Yeah, it's and I actually for the past couple of years I've been there for summer solstice, and there's this gathering and people are partying and doing the thing, and I'm just curious, why do you think why are people being drawn to these sites? What do you think's going on?
What I think is going on are two things. I think, yes, some people are spiritually drawn because in times gone by, the church was a place where people used to go to express their spirituality,
Mm,
and then the church fell out of favor,
mm,
and then paganism has been starting to grow for many, many years.
mhm,
I've been in this for about 30, 35 years, and I've seen it a peak in the 1990s.
mhm.
That was a peak. Then it dipped down, and then it seems to be rising up. So I think some of it is spirituality, but I think some of it is just a bucket list and an Instagram tick off photograph or
Yeah.
so, without sounding too cynical, but that's the truth of the matter, because I ask people when I kind of meet them or they recognize me at Avebury, I say, why are you here? And I hear many different stories. Compelling stories that I hear is that they dreamt of the place and it's a calling and it's a healing
Mhm,
of something. And I think that's quite beautiful
mm,
and quite profound and quite meaningful for some people. So it could be spiritual, it could be healing, it could be because of a dream. Whatever the calling, when these stones do call,
mm,
they allow us to communicate with the stones. And we can communicate with the stones by just being in their presence, by literally asking why we're here. And sometimes you get an answer, you get a download by touching the stones. You can touch the stones at Avebury and obviously Castlereagh, Longmeg, and many others, but you
mhm,
can't at Stonehenge, even on private access,
mhm,
which is quite expensive. And the only time you can touch the stones at Stonehenge is in a chaos mode at the summer solstice. I
mm.
was at the summer solstice leading a tour, and it was, I think, something like 20, 25,000 people there. And the tour leader said, could you get us by the trilithons? And I thought, what, through 20,000 people when we've only arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning? But I communicate to the stones and I got them right where they wanted. Don't ask me how. I had
Wow,
25 people following me, weaving in and out from
that's
the
amazing.
outer reaches right to the center of Stonehenge. But when we communicate to the stones by asking, before we even enter, ask in your heart if it feels right, the spirit of place, the
Mm,
ancestors, the guardian for permission to enter,
mm.
then it's almost like the energies accept you and have a gateway, and you're allowed to walk through with ease of passage and
Interesting.
rite of passage.
That's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, I go there with my girlfriend, and she's from America, and she touches the stones and she honors them and taps in and things, and it's impressive to me. You know, I feel like I'm just like a complete beginner at these things, but there's definitely something going on now. You mentioned Stonehenge, so obviously you've written a book on Stonehenge, and by the way, your books.
And Avebury, my bestseller, my first
Okay.
book 20 some years ago was
Okay.
about Avebury when Avebury wasn't even popular. Now it's become a bestseller.
Right, interesting again.
Okay.
Yeah, because I went to Avebury a couple of years ago, just because I think I heard you talk about it. So I thought I was in the area. I was actually in London for a concert. So whilst I was down that neck of the woods, I say that neck of the woods, I was driving. I thought I'd go swing by and have a look, and it was just beyond stunning. Not only is the area just absolutely gorgeous, but like you say, the stones everywhere. And like you say, did you call it the avenue? And all right, fair enough. The gentleman you mentioned before has put them there, but they still contain and they're still doing their thing, right?
Mm.
But again, you just mentioned Stonehenge. Probably the most popular. Would you class it as a stone circle? I mean, what would you class it as in the world?
Yeah.
Um,
It's iconic. I mean, there was, I mentioned earlier, up to 1,000 stone circles throughout the British Isles. And Stonehenge is iconic. There is nothing else like it.
mm,
Yeah,
mm,
there's lots of circles, but
yeah,
not like Stonehenge. So it does stand apart, and it stands, away from civilization almost. Even today, yes, you've got the A303 going through there, but you don't have houses there.
mm,
Avebury has a village
yeah.
inside of it, and a pub, and shops, and public loos, and things like that. Stonehenge, when it stood alone, I think was iconic.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I remember in the talk that you gave at that conference I mentioned earlier. Is it on its original site, Stonehenge?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We know that because of the archaeology, such as LIDAR. and they've been excavated these stone holes. And it's, when people say they were moved, that was a Russian conspiracy theory,
Mm.
which, I feel sad for the ancestors then,
Mm.
because the ancestors put them there. They are definitely in the right place. But again, a bit like Avebury and other sites, some of the stones are just a little few inches away from the original socket hole,
Mm.
because it was implausible to put it there. They would have been leaning, and there would have been engineering issues. So the ones that have been re-erected and set in concrete, like Avebury, are probably just slightly away from their original socket holes. But yes, overall, 100% in its in situ,
Right.
in its correct location.
That's good. That's good. So again, obviously, one of the most iconic sort of sacred sites in the world, and it's good to hear that actually. Um, but
Just look at the LiDAR,
yeah,
look at the evidence. That's what I always say to people, and
right,
then you'll find out the truth.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm grateful for people like yourself that are doing this and bringing this stuff forward because I think it is important because, I don't know where you stand with things. I mean, you know, things there's an establishment, shall we say, that try and distort a lot of these the sacredness of lands and things. And it's good to hear that they've not been overly successful with a lot of these. Um, but I think the with regards to Stonehenge and these, I guess, sacred sites, particularly at Castlereagh. Whenever I go to Castlereagh, because obviously it's nearest to me, is I can't stand it when like historic England have a sign there trying to tell you what they were, or national heritage or something like. Because I'm thinking there must have been more than this. Like for example, Castlereagh, they say, oh, this would have been a meeting place for farmers, or something like that. I mean, do you agree with that, or obviously there must be more to these sites than what they tell us?
Look, if we listen to the National Trust, or as we say in Avebury, the National Mistrust, and English Heritage, which its new name is Historic England, they just changed the letters around. A bit interesting why they did that.
Mm.
But nonetheless, if we listen to their narrative, then mystery solved. Everyone came over from Anatolia. They were farmers, and they built stone circles. Let's all go home and have a cup of tea.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
no mystery there. When I think, there were obviously in the ADNA Anatolian farmers coming over, but we could have been meeting them. Everybody thinks it's coming one way traffic, and I don't think that's the case at all. When we look to the sophisticated sound frequencies, astronomical alignments, for example,
Right.
the mathematical ratios that Alexander Thom has pointed out in the design canon of these places, the number ratio that John Michel has discovered, as well as the earth energy placements that I have, they are not just meeting places for farmers.
Hmm.
They are many different things. They are multifaceted. They can be calendrical, meaning some stones could point to a solstice, an equinox, or one of the cross quarter days. For example, at Stonehenge, as I've pointed out, the 12th century chronicler called Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote the History of the Kings of Britain,
Hmm.
said this about Stonehenge: no stone at Stonehenge doth not have healing power.
Mm.
So right up until the 1960s, until Gerald Hawkins came along with his computer analysis, rightly so, of Stonehenge, and said it's an eclipse predicting calculator computer,
Mm.
it became calendrical. But it's both. It's
Mm.
healing and calendrical. Do you see what I'm saying? They're
Absolutely.
multifaceted. And then, because in the 1960s he had a book out, everyone was talking about the sunrise at the solstice and things, boom, the healing aspect got forgotten about. So I
Mm.
think a lot of these stone circles, they have different functions. Castlereagh, for example, has a section that is like a sanctuary of 10 stones, creating like a square-like
Yes.
enclosure there.
Mm.
So we could say what's going on there.
Mm.
And when we look at some of the esoteric properties of the stone circles, regardless of the earth energies, the alignments,
Mm.
there's an esoteric side. where the ancients were tapping into something very, very profound. Because if we look to the seven wonders of the ancient world, and the pyramids were one, the temple of Artemis was the moon, and if we listen to Wikipedia, boo, then one of the temple of the lighthouse of Alexandria was equated to Saturn, but really it's the Temple of Solomon. So the seven wonders of the ancient world were equated to a planet, like the moon for Artemis,
Mhm.
Mercury for the pyramid, Solomon's temple, Saturn, and they all equate to what's called a magic square. And a magic square is used by magicians, for example.
Mhm.
So I won't go into detail of that, but my point here is there's an esoteric side.
Mm.
There's an underpinning at stone circles, just like the seven wonders of the ancient world. That's how the ancients worked. That is not Anatolian farmers. That's not British farmers.
Right.
And also, with this magical esoteric side, it has been known to have come from Arabia, for example. The Chinese had it, the Indian culture,
Mhm.
Hindus had it.
Mhm.
We had it in Great Britain.
Yeah.
So that's not meeting up for farmers. That's integrating what the seven wonders of the ancient world had. I mean, come on.
Oh, I love it. I love it because, like I say, I go to these places and it's almost like there's well, there's a vibration there. Let's put it that way, and it's like a remembering. It's like I know there is more to this, and I don't necessarily know what it is, but that's why I love like people that are doing the work and the research like you are to get this stuff out. I mean, this brings me back to I say we many people have this theory that the ancient world was far more advanced than we give it credit for. They had knowledge of things, understanding of the technology of nature, way more than we do, and we think we're advanced because we have iPhones and things. Um, what do you think about that? I mean, do you agree with that?
Absolutely, because when we start to look at the ancient world, even in prehistoric times, the heaviest stones that were moved, as I briefly touched on before,
Mm,
were the first to move. Then they became lesser. So let's think of it as ancient civilizations didn't actually progress like we think it should progress. Oh, it's all going to go forward. It's all going to go forward, and we're going to get more intelligent
mm,
because we think we've done that in our short space of time. I think there was particular crises in the prehistoric period where certain information got blocked. For example, I think, if we go way, way back to Plato's description of Atlantis,
mhm,
for example, with those three circular islands with the water in between. If we look at the design canon of that in its kind of earth energy aspect, then that's exactly the same as Stonehenge, which is exactly the same as the first wattle church of Glastonbury, and other people have noted that as well. So I think they were highly intelligent, highly, highly intelligent, and they knew stones. So at Stonehenge, they imported from Wales
that's
the
right. Yeah.
blue stones, which are three times more magnetic than any other stone in the British Isles. That's not saying, oh, I want a colour contrast, like some of the archaeologists are saying. That's saying we want magnetism.
Mm,
And when we plug that into earth energies, it kind of comes up the stone. And I've described that over many years and have proved that comes up the stone. We measured it
mm.
many years ago. So the stones are emitting Hertzian sound
Wow.
frequencies.
Love
And for example, a stone circle such as Avebury, as part of the Dragon Project, which was done in the late 1970s and 1980s, led by Paul Devereaux, they recorded ultrasound being emitted outwardly by the stones, not into the stone circle,
it.
away from the stone circle. So it's influencing the environ. for
Interesting.
example.
Mm.
And what I noticed about earthen mounds, because if you went to Avebury, you may have visited the West Kennet Long Barrow and Silbury Hill, the
Yep.
largest man-made mound in northwest Europe.
Hmm.
Now, that mound I measured with retired engineer David Webb that supported my work. We took a control at the bottom of the monument, measuring the electrostatic field. That was the purpose and the object of the experiment.
Mm.
And we took a reading on top of Silbury Hill, and it was 1,000 times greater. The
Wow.
electrostatic field was incredible. Now, if like the pyramids on the Giza plateau, that they were capped, which were capped in gold,
Mhm.
that's long been said,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, and
yeah.
we're going to say yes, that was the case. And you capped or put a pole on top of Silbury Hill, a copper or gold pole, because there was there was Chalcolithic eras with copper over here, Bronze Age.
Hmm.
You put that metal there, then at night, because it's acting like a capacitor and interacting with the electrostatic field, it would have emitted at night a blue haze.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, that was recorded and photographed by somebody I know who got the remnants of it. Silbury Hill's been dug into, it's been
Mm.
tunneled into, so it doesn't remain in its pristine condition. But despite all of that, he captured a blue haze right on the summit, stretching halfway across that summit, which is about 98 feet across or
Wow.
so. So I think again, okay, we're looking at the archaeological model. They're just farmers. Well, why do you want to light up a big mound at night so you can put your cattle through or something? I mean, it doesn't add up because that is engineering skill. And the other engineering skill about Silbury Hill, it's got a drain system because it's only made of chalk and earth.
Mm.
Come on, it's 4,500 years old and it's hardly shown any signs of erosion because
Mm.
it's got an internal system about it. So I think they were so highly sophisticated and attuned to the land, attuned to each other.
Hmm.
They were a big community. To build the monuments in the southwest of England, like in the north, alike, you need organisation.
Hmm.
You need people, and even people gathering at these sites. And Stonehenge can house 2,000 comfortably, as calculated by the archaeologist Aubrey Bell. Then you're going to have to feed those people.
Mm.
You're going to have water for those people. So this is a massive community venture. It's not just a few farmers turning up with a goat and a cow.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, not probably a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, um, I was in the area. I went to Wiltshire, and I've got. I mean, I've got so many questions about that area. We went because there was apparently. I mean, we've had a record amount of crop circles this year, I believe. I've heard the number 21. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. But we went just on the off chance going crop circle finding, and I found myself at the bottom of Silbury Hill. Basically, there was like a canal. We walked along the canal because I had like this location where there was allegedly one that had been recently created. I mean, so many questions because we went up to the horses, the chalk horses on the hills. I can't remember what they're called. Vale of Pusey, is it?
Yeah, that's a modern one done in the
Yeah.
1930s.
Okay.
And some of them around Alton Barnes, where the Crop Circle Exhibition Centre, run
Mhm.
by my friend Monique Klinkenberg, has it. That's about a couple of 100 years old. The oldest white horse is in Oxfordshire called the Uffington White Horse. That's Bronze
Ah,
Age. That's thousands
interesting.
of years old.
Okay.
A lot of people think they're all quite antiquated in this area,
Yeah.
but they're far from that.
Interesting, because I think I saw somewhere that there's eight of them in like around the area. Is that right? Did I get that right?
There are a lot, but some of them are quite modern.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they're a couple of hundred years old, and people draw dots between them and say there's this there. But
Yeah.
really, you're spanning the first one, 1,000, two, well, 4,000 years old. Then you go to the Westbury White Horse. That's concreted. It's a
Mhm,
modern one.
mhm,
It underlies a much older one. That said,
mhm.
and so on and so forth. So it can be quite confusing to somebody that doesn't know the area,
Right.
that thinks that they're all quite antiquated.
Yeah, that's great to know because I mean we were up and I mean I had no idea which one we just went to have a look because we were right next to it, and we were just looking down over is it corn? I don't know what they're growing. Is it wheat fields or whatever?
Barley and
Barley.
wheat.
Yeah, and it was just so idyllic. It was warm, and it's just like I said, I've never been, but it was absolutely glorious day. And it was like we were charged just being there, you know. And again, we went looking for this stone circle and ended up at the bottom of Silbury Hill. I didn't know what it was. I had to AI it, like, what's this? That's what I know. And we just stood there, like, look, we're in this area, and it was just amazing. Like we were just again just charged. I mean, what's all that about? I mean, everywhere we looked, there was something significant, whether it be a mound. I mean, what is a mound to people that haven't really looked at that before?
There's several types of mounds. So Silbury Hill, if people would like to Google that, it does contain one of the most powerful lays in the area that charges the entire landscape, but that's
Yeah.
another story. We're
Mm,
talking about mounds. So Silbury Hill is an earthen mound. It was never used for burial. It's been looked into over the years.
mm,
So that's an earthen mound. And originally, Silbury would have been quite arched on the top, very breast-like, very feminine. It was cut off by William, Duke of Normandy, after we lost the Battle of Hastings, and
mm,
he made it into a bury, which means fortification, bury, B-U-R-Y. So that's Silbury Hill, and you have other earthen mounds like that in the area, like Merlin's Mount in
mm,
Marlborough. It's its sister mound. It's about half the size, roughly speaking, and they are, literally earthen mounds. But then you do get other mounds in the area that were from the Bronze Age and the Late Bronze Age, where they contained burials and cremations.
mhm,
So they are burial mounds for instance. So there is a kind of difference. The burial mounds aren't as big as Silbury, but had you walked along the Ridgeway, if you'd gone a little bit more to the north, heading towards Marlborough on the A4, and called off by the sanctuary and the opposite side of the road at the Ridgeway, you'd have seen the burial mounds. You could have walked to
oh,
those.
right.
And all of the burial mounds, it was Master Dowsers like my late father that realised that they were all linked by what's called colour linear lines. They're a bit like lays. I mean,
Mhm,
if we call them lays, I think it simplifies that rather than using geomantic terms that can add to confusion. They're all linked together as one. So when we look at mounds, we think of them, oh, that one's over there, that one's over there. Oh, look,
mhm,
there's another one over there, when really they form one monument. Again, back in the day when there was no roads breaking it up.
mm,
So we see things as being separate, but they are actually connected. And then when we look at lays, they're not really straight lines if they're global. They're great circles because they go around the world,
mm,
for instance, and they can connect site after site in these massive grid-like networks of great circles. And charging through Silbury Hill, like I mentioned earlier, is one of the most profound and powerful lays
mm,
in the area. It links Silbury to Avebury, to
mm.
Stonehenge, to
Right.
Mardinhenge, Castley Camp, Adam's Grave, for example,
Mm,
and they all link into planets. They
mm,
all represent a planet in the landscape. And Mardinhenge, as I've long pointed out, was a super henge, bigger than Avebury. hardly anything exists of it today, but it was huge, this Superhenge. And den is an Old English word for settlement, Marden. It represents Mars on this planetary orbit. If you imagine a line with circles going around it representing the planets,
Mm.
then that's the settlement of Mars.
Wow. Wow.
So, and when we look to that, it was drawn by the Reverend Edward Duke, so I call that lay the Duke line. Then I got an astronomer to look at the distances between them, and he said, "Oh my goodness, what the ancients were doing here is looking at astronomical units." Well, hey, they were only discovered relatively recently. That's a modern astronomical term. They were looking at an astronomical unit and shortening it and shortening it. It's called a harmonic, divided by two, divided by two, divided by two, 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 like that. It's a harmonic. And they got the distance of the correct astronomical distance in the heavens
Wow.
above. Now, that is extremely powerful astronomical knowledge. So I said to the astronomer that helped me out, it ended at Saturn. Well, where are the outer planets? He calculated that using astronomical units of harmonics transferred into miles, not astronomical units. And we found it using the same system, sacred site on Uranus and Neptune. So that's using invisible planets now that weren't visible to the naked eye thousands of years ago. You need a
Amazing.
telescope to see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So once again, I say this is such advanced mathematical
Mm.
technology used in the placement of that, and that lay is all powerful.
That's amazing. So, where my mind's going now, because on this channel we are looking at things like disclosure, extraterrestrial life, things like that, the stars. This is a huge topic. Things it seems to be some form of disclosure is happening, with governments confirming the reality of extraterrestrial life. Not that we need to be told that, but anyway. Do you think there is a disclosure element to these sites? As in, do you think we're going to activate them? We're going to use them again? Do you think that's going to happen? And another question: do you think the ancients were in contact with extraterrestrial life?
I think the ancients were fully aware of the solar system in which they lived and
Hmm.
far, far beyond. Because one of the astronomical alignments I discovered at Stonehenge was at the spring equinox at midnight in phase one of Stonehenge. At the zenith, meaning directly above you in the heavens above, was Corona Borealis,
Mm.
a starry constellation. So they were deliberately incorporating these stars and star systems into their ancient sites. And West Kennet Longbarrow, not far from Silbury Hill, that incorporated stars. People talk about the sun and the moon all the time. Oh,
Mm.
sun, moon, sun, moon. But it was also the stars. So right at the back of the Western Chamber at West Kennet Longbow was aligned to Antares in Scorpio, for example. So they were calling in this energy. So presumably they were doing that not just for a celestial event
Mm.
that is a transient at a particular time of the year, but because maybe they understood their place
Mm.
within a wider whole. And that's what I think humanity needs to reconnect with. We've lost our placement
Right.
within the wider whole,
Mm.
whether that's the solar system, whether that's the galaxy in which we live. We have become, unlike the ancestors, insular. It's
Mhm.
us.
Mm.
And then for some reason, up until relatively modern times, with disclosure, oh, it's only us here. So there's that disconnect.
Mhm.
So I think, as time goes on, there will be a reconnect with those sites. And I think the sites do attract UFO activity.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, I've seen a craft in this area. Others have. Besides, I did a show with the UFO hunters quite some time ago. Now they were a great bunch of guys. I loved the UFO hunters. Had a great time with them. And they always point out wherever you get a vortex, I showed them the vortex at Stonehenge, you get military establishment. As I've long pointed out,
Yes.
Stonehenge is surrounded
Yeah.
by 16 military bases. I've been saying that for decades. and you get ancient sites. You get all of those three things,
Yeah.
whether it's Sedona, Rollright, or wherever. And that's because of the known activity. And I do think, just like Area 51, and I've always called the Salisbury Plain Area 51, I coined that phrase years ago, just like the Nevada, USA Area 51, I think that houses back engineered craft because have seen from where I live, not looking out for anything. I was with my daughter Raven
Mm,
actually,
mm,
and we were just looking up at the sky for just, it was a nice evening.
mm.
And the craft that we both saw was like a black stealth. It looked black through the naked eye, your classical flying saucer. Now that came from the direction of the Salisbury Plain, so I, being clever, oh, quick, I'll take a photograph of it. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I did it on my phone, and I got Raven to run in and get my camera. I got a really, really good camera for like when I take photos for books and things. Took
Yeah.
a couple of shots. When I went to see it a couple of moments afterwards, nothing was on. Nothing.
Wow.
But
Wow.
we were looking at it directly. I could
Yeah.
even tell you the direction. And then the direction it came from, it seemed to go back to, was definitely heading for Salisbury Plain.
Wow. That's amazing. So it's a really interesting point. I mean, I've noticed this as well, that where there is a significant sign, there is a military base or military activity. A little bit conspiratorial, but why do you think that is? Why do you think what interest do you think they have in this stuff?
I think there's several reasons, one of which is the power lines that go into that place. I mean, it was in the 1960s that I think it was Jacques Valery's, or I can't remember his, I probably pronounced his surname wrong, excuse me,
Mhm.
who long pointed out that the UFOs seem to travel in straight lines as if they're mimicking going on lays or grids, as we kind of
Yeah.
think of them a little bit more now,
Mhm.
for instance. So I think they're drawn to this kind of natural energy in the earth. And I also think that the military are there for control, to monitor, to
Right.
see who comes in, to see who goes out. I mean, I've been on the Salisbury Plain. I know how to navigate it, and the amount of times I've had the military police. Even when I did a tour, we went to a barrow called White Barrow,
Mhm.
which is on the edge of the Salisbury Plain, and but it is right in the middle of other military bases. And we were meditating, and we just went up there to meditate. And I discovered the Long Skull people, as you might know, and we were
Mhm.
honouring that, and
Mhm.
it was all very nice, actually. Next minute, I'm waited at the bottom of the track by the military police, saying we've been monitoring you from the moment you got onto the Salisbury Plain because you had 5 or 6 cars following you. Yeah. So they were monitoring and said, "What were you doing?" And I said, "Well, the crime of the century, meditating." On top of it. But that's how you're being monitored. Once you're in that area, and no
Mhm.
joke, you are being monitored. So I think a lot of it is about control. On the Salisbury Plain alone, it's the largest condensed area of sacred sites. There's more than 2,400 sites on
Right.
that area alone.
Right.
You're talking unprecedented
It is.
now,
That is.
okay?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think it's about the amount of energy there as well, and some of the most unusual, freaky, bizarre burials that you find in the British Isles are on the Salisbury Plain.
I can believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Excuse me. I mean, this is absolutely talking my language because I think this is a lost technology. Or when I say lost, I think there are people out there that know about this stuff and it's been kept from us. But like, there's people like you that are doing the research. Would you say you're intuitive led? Do you think you have an intuition with this stuff? Like, what
Yeah.
inspires you to do it?
Well, I have a real close connection. I believe, the ancestors communicate
Hmm.
to me ever since I discovered that what I call the High Queen of Stonehenge.
Hmm.
There was this intimate relationship, and I call myself a mystic academic.
Hmm.
So I've studied archaeology for 3 years at Oxford under Lisa Brown, under the Cat's Points degree system. But I'm also very intuitive and been brought up in a very alternative manner. None of my family have ever been christened. We've
Mm,
always been in more of the occult tradition
mhm.
of learning as how we grew up. So I have that side of me, which I think blends quite well because when I discover things, I don't want people to believe me. I can't stand belief systems, they're like a cult.
Right,
Yeah. What I want people to do is say, this is the evidence.
right.
This is what you have. Now you make up your own mind and you don't have to just believe in me. That's the academic side of me, but my mystic side knows that already.
Right,
So
right.
I balance these two worlds for the general public to try and inspire them
Mm,
to be empowered at these ancient sites and to dig a little bit deeper, and then you often find out the truth, and the truth is often buried. That's why you have to dig a bit deeper.
right, right. And as we say, the truth is often stranger than fiction as well. It's you have to have an open mind for a lot of these things. I'm finding. So, just changing gears slightly, another place I really wanted to get your take on because we've been there, and again, it's one of the strangest places, but I absolutely love it. Is Glastonbury. Now, I actually saw that you're in Glastonbury relatively soon, doing a conference, I believe.
Yes, I will be at the Portal to Ascension conference
Hmm.
in late August, where I will be talking about very strange burials and star temples
Mm,
rather than sun and lunar alignments, as I've touched upon. Glastonbury, again, is one of these places in the south of England that is like Castlereagh, Swinside, and Longmeg. I don't want to do a north-south divide, but because each place has its unique power place, but it does have a magnetic pull worldwide.
hmm.
Is undeniable because
Yeah.
I've taken people there for the past 30 years from
Hmm.
all over the world, and it has this pull. And again, it comes down to it has a pull, but it can communicate something. It can change your life.
Mm,
It can give you your soul's divine purpose.
mm,
It can even inspire you to do something very different to what you have normally done. They can change us.
mm, mm,
And that's one of the roles of Glastonbury, for example. And then it has the healing waters of Chalice, the red spring and the white spring,
mhm.
for instance, that have been known for its curative properties. I prefer the white waters myself. I'm not too keen on. I'm a water diviner, so I know you're not
Okay.
supposed to drink too much iron water.
Mhm,
But when we look to the mythos of the Abbey, for example, Glastonbury Abbey, it was a healing destination.
mm,
People went there for a purpose. It's set by what Hamish Miller discovered many years ago. The Mary current is incorrectly often called a line, the Mary line. It's actually a current that surrounds a ley line. It meanders around it, sets the entire axis line. And it's the second largest abbey in England,
mm,
second to Canterbury, for example. And it was its own country at one time, a bit like the City of London is its
mhm.
own country,
I
for
know.
example.
Yeah.
Glastonbury was like that, and that's why Henry VIII really wanted to get taxes and things from it. So the whole of Glastonbury, including the Tor, as Catherine Maltwood discovered in the 1930s, she was a woman that went up in a plane. I mean, that was unprecedented by itself then. So a shout out to Catherine Maltwood for doing that. She looked down at Glastonbury and saw the Glastonbury zodiac in the landscape, a massive, massive earthen zodiac, which she claims has ties back to very, very ancient times, even possibly Sumerian, or some people say the Templars. There's lots of so much symbolism
Yeah, yeah.
therein. It's hard to say it's one thing or another. I think it's a combination of many things over many years. So it sits in this wonderful, wonderful landscape that has this zodiac, and the Taur represents the Phoenix and Aquarius.
Mm,
So when we're on the dawn of the age of Aquarius, some would say,
mm,
it's interesting to note people are drawn to the Glastonbury Tor, which that itself is intriguing because when we stand on the Glastonbury Tor, you have the surviving West Tower of the Church of St. Michael,
Mm,
and the rest of it toppled in an earthquake in 1275.
mm.
Now, a lot of other churches on the St. Michael ley line toppled as well,
Very
which led
interesting.
the great researcher of Glastonbury, John Michell, to say that he thinks that part of that line follows a fault line. Otherwise, it's just coincidental that the churches fell on that line.
Mhm.
So really, when we look to that standing tower, it's the result of an earthquake, which is very unusual for that part of
Didn't
the
know that.
country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But so it's a surviving element of the whole zodiac in a way.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Like I said, I didn't know that. I've noticed as well that the tour has a very female shape to it when you look at it from above. Is that got a significance to it?
Yes, I think it has, because when we look at how two Earth currents interact
Mm,
with the Tor, so let's move away from ley lines and think that there can be Earth currents that meander like rivers.
mhm,
And these two Earth currents meander around the St. Michael ley line, as discovered by Hamish. I doused with Hamish, and he forwarded my first book on Avebury.
mhm,
Now, at the Glastonbury Tor, the Mary current, as he called it, meanders gracefully around the Tor. She imagine like wrapping round the Tor, I think would be an
yeah.
easy way. It's not exact, but it's an easy way to visualize it. And she forms
Hmm.
like a
Yeah.
horseshoe shape at the top of the Tor, at the eastern end. And then Michael wraps himself serpentine around the Tor and then penetrates that horseshoe shape,
Hmm.
which Hamish described as an alchemic sexual union. So part of the Tor is feminine
Hmm.
and part of the Tor is masculine.
Interesting. Okay.
Saint Michael. So if we look at it holistically, then it's male and female through its symbolism of how the earth energies interact with
Mm.
that Tor. So if we go to that Tor and we follow the symbolism of earth energy, we can birth things anew. We can
Very
renew
interesting.
ourselves. We
Yeah.
can have new ideas. We can have that's the birth conception
Mm.
at Avebury. They come to maturity at Avebury because the two earth currents co-join.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of symbolism going on with geomancy, the wisdom of the earth at places like Glastonbury.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, this for a small island, we've got a lot going on, haven't we?
Indeed, we
We
have.
really do. Um, you know, I mean, obviously here up north, I mean, we're not even touched on Scotland. I mean, there's so much in Scotland as well. These these
Mm,
these islands are just they're packed with the ancient world, and so much of it is I find is hidden in plain sight. Like you can go past things and kind of not even notice. We were on a walk this last weekend. We went to Yorkshire, up on the moors, and we found the 12 Apostles stone
12
circle.
apostles, yeah. A
Um,
great stone circle.
yeah, what about that? What's going on there?
Well, again, you see, when we look to places like Dartmoor in the south, or the moors that the north are quite famous for, for
Mhm,
many different reasons, they're often the result of over farming in the Bronze Age. So we're going to go back in the day when it possibly was not moorland. Just see what I mean? When it
mhm,
was a different type of environment. The 12 Apostles are probably more of a later stone circle than
mhm,
Castlerig. Castlerig, Swinside, for example, they're all quite old.
mm,
stone circles. The smaller the stone circle gets, the younger that it is. So the gigantic ones like Avebury, Stonehenge,
mhm,
Longmeg, for example, the Ring of Brodgar, they're Neolithic. The smaller stone circles are 9 times out of 10 later than that in the Bronze Age. It's a continuation of a design, but in the because the 12 Apostles isn't as big as some of the gigantic
right.
henges
Yeah.
that you get, for example, which is my point, because they came more instead of being hugely communal, saying 2,000 people at Avebury, come on, we're going to do this. We're going to have this intent there. At the smaller stone circles, it was more your local community. That's what I mean by even from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age, something happened
Mm,
that the technology was beginning to wane then,
mm,
not just much later, because like I mentioned before, they're larger, the henges, the stones are heavier in the first phases.
mm,
But
mm,
that said, it's a wonderful stone circle, and the smaller Bronze Age ones are condensed energy as well.
mm,
Yeah,
mm,
so let's say it's not just like, oh, big brother, little sister over here. They too radiate out energy and uh, magical properties besides. So in this instance, in the megalithic world, size does not matter.
right, right. And I noticed as well when I was there that obviously you've got the 12, that's what it's called, the 12 apostles, the 12 stones that make the circle. But then there was one in the middle, and I noticed a lot of these stone circles have something in the middle, whether it be other stones or something. Do you have a theory on why that is?
Yes, a lot do. Whether it's the altar stone or stones at Stonehenge, the obelisk and the cove at Avebury, and even the leaning stone in Cornwall, Boscawen Stone Circle. If you look at how the stones relate to one another, then what they do is if you visualize, they can push out linear lines of force. We've measured this. This isn't fantasy. This is what a stone does. Then it kind of connects to another stone. Just imagine it kind of locks on like that. And if you have a central stone, it kind of attracts. And then if you have outliers, which a lot of them, even in around Yorkshire, you had a lot of what's called outliers.
Mhm,
That's a standing stone some distance away. They will latch on to the centre, then they will latch on to the next stone and the
mm,
next stone. So they go inwards and outwards
mhm,
at the same time, which is very powerful
mm,
in terms of how the stones not just communicate to one another, that's actually called crosstalk in geomantic terms, but if you're stood there at the center, then you are receiving a lot of energy that, your subtle centers, chakras, call them what you
mhm,
will be interacting with that energetic force because there is no separation. You can't separate yourself from those
mhm,
linear lines. You become a part of the stone circle
mhm.
as if you're a standing stone yourself,
Wow.
so to speak, because you're interacting with it. Do you see
Mm,
what I mean? There isn't that separation, and
mm.
that's what I find fascinating. I think the ancients set them up like that to interact with those transformative alchemic energies.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you're there, you don't have to do anything. Just being there is enough.
Absolutely. I mean, we could get pernickety and say if you're over there, that's even more powerful, or
Mm,
you're here.
mm,
I'm sure the ancient priesthood was like that. They were
right.
learned,
Mm,
they were highly intelligent, and I think they knew where to stand. And I've argued that before.
mm,
But let's say we have no knowledge. Yeah, we have no knowledge. Then it's natural to walk from the outside to a center. And if you people watch anyway at a stone circle, and
mhm,
obviously I've had decades of people
mm,
watching at stone circles, they gyrate, they walk towards the center. Now that you could say, oh, that's just because it's the center and they want to look around. Or what we could say to that is they're drawn to that
mm.
because it's a magnet of energy that they are unconsciously interacting with.
Mm.
Yeah, because I think when we go to these sites, there's a remembering
Yep.
who came before, what came before. Am I a part of that? Why am I here? And we have all of these conversations sometimes, some of us, in our heads, and that's the bingo moment when you're there and the energy is interacting with you, and now you're remembering.
Wow. Yeah.
I think it's the energies that trigger that point, and you are that. And that's the wonderful living magic
Yeah.
about stone circles. You are a part of that energetic system.
That's brilliant because I knew when I was at these places, like I knew something was going on. I was just like, I don't know what it is, you know. I can be quite dense, but again, I guess a stone is quite dense as well. Um,
But absolutely. And I think people do feel that. And then it becomes a pilgrimage to go to the next one.
yeah.
And it becomes a pilgrimage to discover something else. Because just like the ancient priesthood, which archaeologists acknowledge, they moved around the landscape. So,
Mm,
for example, at Stonehenge, the big barrows with the most elaborate finds, be that gold and I believe magical objects besides, came from York, the
mm,
Yorkshire area. We
mm,
call her the Lady of York. Even archaeologists call her that because they were buried differently to the Wessex people.
mm,
Yeah, you had a different way of burying. We were more crouched. They would lie the body in a different way. They would organize the burial goods a little bit more differently. So we know that people were interacting in ancient times, and we are doing that. It's almost like we're following the priesthood
mm.
that went before. And I've worked with people like Dolores Cannon, as many of my followers
I love
know,
Dolores
who's
Cannon. Yeah.
what a privilege working with her for years. I look back and think, what a wonder. I truly, truly do.
Yeah.
So I know the past life aspect of stone circles. I'm a past life regression therapist. I don't do so much of that now, but that's how why Dolores employed me in the first place. I could do earth energies, ancient science, archaeology, mysticism. Bingo, I do past life regression
Right.
as well.
Mm,
So it's a tick of boxes, but I think there's that past life aspect to it as well that draws us to
mm,
these places
mm.
for sure.
So, final question, really. A massive out there theory that I've no proof of anything, but do you think that stone circles could be used as a portal?
I think stone circles are definitely linked as above and so below.
Right.
Okay, that has been an occult adage for year after year,
Mm,
millennia after millennia. And I think lots of aspects of stone circles are revealing themselves over the years. There's probably the best is yet to come. I don't know what that is, but I
mm,
think the best is yet to come. And I think when, it's a bit like when I switch on the light, I know the light's going to come on.
mm,
Once we have that encodement of I can switch on
mm,
that stone circle, and I've taken thousands of people around, and I don't think the formula is too out is too known yet, unless you're going right in the new agey camp and it's a belief system.
mm,
But if it really was, something boomf would start to vibrate, and
mm.
frequencies would change rather than just asking it to open. So I think yes, I think there's many different aspects, and because I've been in this for such a long time and seen different terminology, different ideas come about, that's why I'm saying the best is yet to come,
Mm,
because we don't know the full story of stone circles or pyramids or monuments worldwide. We are in the kindergarten, infancy stage
I
of
agree.
our awareness, no matter what author thinks they're clever. Yeah, we are at that stage, I believe, compared to the wisdom of the past. And we're kind of scratching at the surface,
Yeah.
but we're doing pretty good because we are exposing facts. I've exposed a lot about stone circles, and I've been clamped down on English heritage. They've banned all my books after a 10-year
That's an
contract.
honour.
Yeah, I work like a badge. Uh, After 10-year contract of selling with them, I bring out the secret history, long skulled people, harmonics, and all the advanced mathematics. Boom, you can't sell it here anymore. And I did a film, it's out now, it's called Illusion. It's on sale at Amazon. I was a part of that. And the team wanted me to be filmed, dousing there. And the lead historian of English heritage said, basically, and I've got the email to prove this,
Hmm.
kept it. If they didn't even address me by my name, if she does a dowsing demonstration, if she does dowsing, we may not permit you to be filmed. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I know I'm tapping on the right door because
Absolutely.
those doors are now being closed. So
Mhm.
that's what I mean. We're all your role as well. With the Mystic Gateway podcast, for example, allowing people to have their voice and be in that place where people can come and go, I knew that, because
Yeah.
they will have a remembering.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
we trigger those rememberings. Do you see
Mhm.
what I mean?
I
And
do.
before you know it, you've got this massive disclosure where we are a part of it, not just waiting for the government under whoever to expose the truth. We can uncover that truth.
Bingo. That is a mic drop moment right there. Maria, that was absolutely fantastic. I could talk to you for absolutely hours, but before we end it, please tell everyone where they can find you, what resources you've got, and any books. I'll put the your website in the description of the show if people want to check you out. But what is your website and how can people find you?
Yeah, well, I will be in the North on the 26th and the 27th of September. Mysterious North. Go on Facebook or my
Yeah.
website to have a look at that. It's got some great speakers. People can find out more about me on my teaching platform, which is esotericcollege.com, or they can find me at the Avebury. We've just been talking about Avebury. The Avebury Experience.co.uk, and they have each site interacts with the other site,
Mhm, mhm,
and people can find out about my books and my courses and my trips, like to Egypt and
mhm.
far, far beyond, and Malta. And for your girlfriend, I will be in America's Stonehenge and Salem next year. I have private access to America's
Wow.
Stonehenge.
That's amazing, amazing. Right, fantastic. And we do have an American audience here, so anybody interested in that, get on board.
Yeah.
Maria, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to go on one of your tours and listen to more of your talks. But for now, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.